now I'll turn the time over to Dr. Adam Saucedo. Dr. Saucedo has worked in all kinds of different clinics. He studied in New York. He went to med school there. He's been around the world. It's his heritage is Latin even, but he looks so gringo. He speaks perfect English, perfect Spanish. And I just think that he has been also a tone setter in this movement of FG Xpress, because I'll tell you what, man, he has gone beeline, aggressive, to make this experience for you guys one of quality information, quality presentation, empowerment, knowing the guidelines of what we can and cannot say. But he has led this charge from the technical standpoint and the medical standpoint. So, ladies and gentlemen, Craig, do you need a couple more minutes, or are you good? We're good? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Adam Saucedo.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. This is an amazing venue. I look forward to meeting, hopefully, many of you when you come out at the end of the month. I'd like to take just a few minutes and talk to you about the science, the important details of power strips. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and begin. Okay, what I'd like to start with is how the power strips are constructed. There are two parts of the power strips, the upper part of the power strip and the lower part of the power strip. What's very exciting to me, as somebody who's done some work designing similar things on the medical side, is the materials that are used to build these power strips. It's truly amazing and incredibly thoughtful the way it was done. The top part of the power strips is a biodegradable plant-based matrix, and it's very gentle to the skin. It was designed to be that way. One of the top priorities in this organization, in Forever Green International and FG Xpress, is a commitment to safety, a commitment to quality. And that certainly carries through with this product, the power strips. The top part, as I mentioned, is designed specifically to be gentle to the skin so that we can use them on a regular basis. It allows the skin to breathe. And ultimately, when we're done using them, we can discard them and not be concerned about an impact, a negative impact on the environment. They're non-toxic and biodegradable. One of the main designs that we need to understand in order to understand how these power strips work is to understand that germanium particles, the element germanium, small particles, are distributed evenly throughout this top plant-based matrix. And something important to note, this germanium never touches the skin. It is removed from it and above the skin. So what exactly is germanium doing? Well, it's well understood, and I think anybody can just touch their own arm or touch someone next to them and feel heat, feel energy rising from our bodies. Well, when you apply a power strip to the body, that heat, that thermal energy rises up and it goes through the adhesive and it strikes each of these germanium particles. So how does the germanium handle this energy? That's one of the key things to understand. Germanium, elemental germanium, has optical properties, and it's extremely sensitive to the infrared and the far infrared. So that when energy rises off the body and strikes all of these small particles of germanium, there's actually a process occurring where the germanium particles, because of their optical properties, shift the energy. And they refract it. They return it to the body, but they return it in the far infrared spectrum. So we're getting this far infrared energy returning to the body. Interesting about far infrared, a very interesting property, is that it has the capability of penetrating deeply into the tissues. If we just put a hot pack on our arm, or a cold pack for that matter, that temperature difference would penetrate down very little. But far infrared is capable of penetrating deeply into the tissues so that it has a more dramatic effect on the tissues that are underneath the power strips. So that as far infrared goes back into the tissues, into the deep tissues, far infrared concentrations rise, heat levels rise, and what happens? That's the key. What does this far infrared do to the body? Here's an illustration of it. This energy is returned. It is thermal energy. It causes an immediate effect, and that effect is demonstrated here. Vessels that are underneath the power strip actually dilate. And that allows for something very important to occur. Blood is delivered to all the tissues, to the cells in that area, because you've got a greater volume because you have these vessels dilating. You have more blood, which means more oxygen, which means all the elements of blood, all the nutritional elements are delivered to all of those areas, all the tissue that underlie the power strips. What does that cause? What does that result in? Well, that increased delivery of far infrared energy and the increased thermal energy that builds up in the tissues sets up an environment for pain relief. Now, Ron talked about how important this new step that we've taken in his organization to actually approach the FDA and to have the power strips listed with the FDA as a Class 1 medical device. That's an extremely important process. It's an extremely important thing for all of us to understand. The fact that we are listed with the FDA as a Class 1 medical device sets us apart. I guess a better way to say it is that it sets us above, in my opinion, anyone else out there in this industry. We are acknowledged now by the FDA, and that's very important. Because we're listed with the FDA, there are certain things we can and we cannot say. What we can talk about is pain. We can talk about how power strips are very effective at relieving pain. This is a huge opportunity for us. There are millions of people that are affected by this process, and there are costs to pain, to society, to the individual. Let me just talk briefly about the monetary costs of pain. In the United States alone, there is a $600 billion annual impact from pain. Lost productivity, costs of health care. This is an extremely high price tag. If you do the math, this represents $2,000 for every living American. Just in terms of the cost of health care to deal with pain, we're talking about another $300 billion. This is embedded in the original number, but healthcare costs alone are responsible for half, $300 billion annually. Americans spend billions of dollars every year to seek relief from non-prescription, not medications, not surgeries, not devices. They seek relief to the tune of billions of dollars every year from pain. We've talked about the costs, the monetary costs to the United States. And you can extrapolate that into the world, and we'll talk about that number in a moment. But there are also non-monetary costs that are more difficult to identify. But because they're difficult to identify doesn't mean that they aren't extremely significant. If you look at the numbers that are involved in pain, if you look at how many people are impacted by pain, pain affects more people than diabetes, than all cancers, than heart disease combined. These are staggering numbers. A study was done of 28,000 people, And the question was asked, in the past 2 weeks, in the previous 2 weeks of your life, how many of you experienced pain that affected the quality of your life in work or at home or in your activities? More than 50%, almost 53% of individuals reported having experienced pain that impacted their life. There's a whole other category of pain as well, and we can talk about that later. But the consequences to pain go beyond the monetary costs. As I've said, they get into how people are affected personally. Pain affects relationships. Pain affects family. If pain persists and it affects your life in a significant way, it actually makes you incapable of working, which of course results in the loss of health insurance, which you're counting on to help you with your pain. It's a vicious cycle. So what can we do? What are we talking about in terms of how pain impacts individuals, how pain impacts the world, and what we as individuals and as an organization can do to address this problem? In my estimation, we have an incredible tool here. Power strips is a tool to address the global epidemic of pain. There are 1.5 billion people on this earth right now whose lives are impacted by pain, and those people are the people that we want to reach out to, that we want to help change their lives. We know that power strips relieve pain, and they do more. But I think it's incumbent on all of us as individuals, as an organization, to get out, to talk about how power strips can impact pain, to share them, to use them personally, and ultimately to make a dramatic change on the impact of pain in your neighborhood, in your country, and in the world. And with that, I just want to take just a moment to share something with you. I'm going to transition out of this very serious issue and talk about an opportunity, talk about an area, direction we're moving as an organization with power strips. We've talked about pain and its impact and what we can do for the world. I want to talk about something else. I want to briefly share with you that power strips are capable of helping us to look better. We can actually impact the look and feel of skin. Think about it. That is the surface that we present to the world. It's the surface we look at in the mirror every day. How we look, how our skin looks, how our skin feels is a tremendously important emotional and psychological component to our lives. Power strips can affect the look and feel of skin. And as we develop this idea, as we talk about it more at the end of the month at the conference, I hope that you will begin to understand more about how that happens. That'll be part of my job. It'll be the job of the rest of the organization to do this. But please, over the next couple of weeks as we approach this conference, think to yourself about how power strips might be used in your life and other people's lives to affect the look and feel of skin. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the time back over to John. Thank you.